Listen, there comes a moment in every life when heaven grows silent, not because God has nothing to say, but because He's waiting for you to listen. You've prayed for direction, yet ignored His whisper. Focus on yourself. You've spent your strength fixing others while your own purpose lies unattended. Time is not your servant. It is your test. And if you don't wake up now, you may one day discover that the greatest thief in your life was distraction. When God turns the mirror toward you, it's not to show you what's wrong with the world. It's to show you what's out of order within yourself. You see, the most dangerous distraction in life is not sin, not people, not even the devil. It's your own neglect of self-development. God will never allow you to fix others while you remain unfixed. He will not permit you to lead others into destiny while you are lost within your own. That's why sometimes He isolates you. He separates you. He silences the noise around you so that you can finally see the noise within you. When God turns the mirror toward you, He's saying, I'm not interested in your performance anymore. I'm interested in your transformation. Because you can be active and still be unproductive. You can be busy and still be blind. You can be surrounded by people and still be disconnected from purpose. And that's why heaven interrupts your motion to restore your focus. The mirror of God doesn't lie. It reveals the truth about your priorities, your motives, your habits, your time. It asks you, who have you become while trying to please everyone else? It challenges you to confront the gap between what you say you want and what you're actually doing. And that confrontation, my friend, is divine mercy, because God would rather correct you in private than expose you in public. He's saying, look again, look at your life, your goals, your circle. Are they still aligned with the vision I gave you? Or have you drifted into the comfort of distraction? Because when purpose is forgotten, time becomes wasted, and time, once lost, can never be redeemed by regret. So God turns the mirror, and suddenly, you see how much potential you've buried under excuses. How many dreams you've delayed because of fear. How many seasons you've spent waiting for permission when heaven already gave you authority. You realize the enemy wasn't blocking you. You were blocking yourself. There comes a moment when the mirror becomes your teacher. It tells you, stop praying for open doors when you haven't prepared the character to walk through them. It tells you, stop blaming others for what your discipline could fix. It tells you, stop saying you're waiting on God when God's been waiting on you. And that's where transformation begins. Not in activity, but in awareness. Because until you can face yourself, you can't lead yourself. And until you lead yourself, you can't lead anyone else. This is the moment heaven whispers, focus on yourself. Because I'm trying to make you into what the world needs next. And that's the real message of the mirror. Not shame, not guilt, but preparation. God is refining you for something greater. He's calling you back to the original blueprint. He's saying, before you run again, pause before you speak again, reflect before you help others, heal. Because the next move of God in your life begins with you. Stop running in circles. You've been busy, yes, but have you been moving or just spinning? There's a difference between progress and motion. You can run hard, sweat much, look active, yet be going nowhere. And sometimes God allows that cycle not to punish you, but to awaken you. Because until you pause long enough to ask, why am I still here? You'll keep repeating the same year with different dates. You see, there comes a time when heaven looks at your life and says, enough wandering. God is not impressed by your hustle. He's waiting for your obedience. You can't keep asking for new direction while ignoring the last instruction. Every divine assignment has a location, and as long as you're outside that place, you'll experience frustration disguised as activity. God never called you to live in circles. Circles keep you busy, but never fulfilled. They keep you surrounded by people, yet far from purpose. They keep you working hard, but not working right. And when God sees you running in circles, He doesn't add more speed, He adds silence. Because sometimes the most merciful thing He can do is stop the wind so you'll notice you're lost. Many are running after success, after approval, after relevance, but not after purpose. And when you run for the wrong reasons, you end up tired, not transformed. Have you ever wondered why doors keep closing? Why certain relationships fall apart? Why opportunities seem to fade just when you think you're close? Maybe it's not the devil. Maybe it's direction. God will never let you succeed in the wrong place. He said to Jonah, "Go to Nineveh." But Jonah went the opposite way and found himself in a storm he created. Not because God was angry, but because God was committed. When you belong to Him, He won't let you waste your destiny. He will use storms, detours, disappointments, and delays to push you back to your assignment. Because your obedience is not optional, it's essential. You can't fulfill purpose on someone else's path. You can't find peace chasing someone else's vision. And you cannot please God while ignoring His direction. Every season you spend outside His assignment drains your strength, clouds your focus, and delays your destiny. That's why heaven is saying right now, stop running, stop striving, and start returning. There's a place where you fit, a calling that carries your name, a territory that responds only to your voice. But you'll never discover it until you stop running from yourself, stop avoiding stillness, stop fearing the silence where God speaks the loudest. So maybe this is that divine interruption, the one where God stops your circle so you can find your straight path again. Because what's waiting ahead of you is far greater than what you keep chasing behind you. The race toward destiny doesn't begin when you start moving. It begins when you stop running in circles and finally start walking in purpose. Before it's too late, that's the phrase echoing in your spirit. You feel it when you wake up. You sense it when you waste another day doing what doesn't matter. It's that quiet urgency, heaven's alarm clock, ringing in the chambers of your soul, saying, time is moving, but are you? You see, life has a strange way of whispering warnings before it screams consequences. God never lets you drift into destruction without first sending signals of direction. But the question is, are you listening? Every destiny comes with a divine timeline. There's a window where purpose calls your name with clarity. And if you ignore it long enough, the sound begins to fade, not because God gives up on you, but because time doesn't wait for hesitation. The tragedy of life is not that we die, it's that we die having never lived what we were born for. You can have breath in your body and still be lifeless in your purpose. And so heaven cries, before it's too late, redeem your focus, redeem your energy, redeem your time. Every wasted hour is a seed you'll wish you planted. Every delay is a debt that purpose will one day collect. God is not asking you to be perfect. He's asking you to be intentional, because potential means nothing without pursuit. You can't keep saying on day when every on day becomes another yesterday. How many ideas have you buried under procrastination? How many callings have you postponed because you thought you had more time? Time is a silent deceiver. It moves quietly, but takes everything with it. You can't negotiate with it, you can't pause it, and you can't replace it. That's why heaven keeps pressing you to move. Because delayed obedience is still disobedience. There's a moment when comfort becomes your enemy, when waiting becomes wasting, when planning becomes avoidance. You say, I'm just preparing. But what if preparation has turned into procrastination? What if you're rehearsing fear and calling it wisdom? God never told you to wait until everything made sense. He said, walk by faith. And faith doesn't need clarity, it needs courage. Before it's too late, reconnect with your purpose, reignite your discipline, rebuild your relationship with time. You were not created to live in circles of delay. You were created to manifest the vision He placed in you. The world is waiting for what you keep postponing. And that's the cry of heaven right now. Move. Move while grace is still available. Move while doors are still open. Move while strength is still in your hands. Because the danger of delay is that the window doesn't stay open forever. God is calling you to urgency, not anxiety. He's not trying to pressure you. He's trying to prepare you. The future is closer than you think. The clock is ticking. And if you don't rise now, you may realize too late that the moment you prayed for had already passed you by. Heaven's warning is clear. You cannot fulfill purpose while distracted. Distraction is the silent assassin of destiny. It doesn't destroy suddenly. It drains slowly. It doesn't attack your gift. It erodes your focus. And if the enemy can't destroy your purpose, he'll drown it in noise. He'll fill your life with movement, conversations, obligations, and comparisons until your vision becomes blurry and your priorities lose alignment. You see, distraction doesn't always look evil. Sometimes it looks like opportunity. Sometimes it sounds like applause. Sometimes it feels like progress. But the most dangerous distractions are the ones that look like blessings while pulling you away from obedience. That's why discernment is more important than speed, because not every open door is divine, and not every invitation is your assignment. Heaven's warning comes when you start confusing activity with advancement, when your calendar is full, but your spirit is empty, when you're always reachable by people, but unreachable by God. That's when heaven says, be still, refocus, because you can't hear divine instruction while entertaining constant interruption. You can't fulfill your purpose if your attention is divided. Purpose requires precision. It demands clarity. It calls for separation. And that's why sometimes God will strip away distractions you thought you needed. He'll take away the crowd to give you back your calling. He'll close certain doors, not to punish you, but to protect your focus. Because what He's building in you cannot survive in the noise you've been living in. Have you noticed how distractions always come when you're closest to breakthrough? The moment you start making progress, something pulls you off course. Suddenly emotions flare up, conflicts rise, random crises appear. Why? Because focus is the price of transformation, and the enemy knows that a distracted believer is a defeated one. Heaven is saying, this is not the season to look around. It's the season to look within. Don't let your attention be stolen by what others are doing. Don't compare your lane, your timing, your story. What God has written for you requires undivided attention. Every second you spend watching others delays your own development. There are seasons when you must disconnect in order to reconnect. You must leave the crowd to find your clarity, because destiny doesn't shout, it whispers. And if you don't silence the noise, you'll miss the voice. So heaven warns not to frighten you, but to focus you. You can't fulfill what you were born to do while chasing everything else. You can't manifest purpose while managing distractions. The two can't coexist. Something must die for something greater to live. And maybe this is the moment when God is asking you to choose. Will you keep chasing distractions that feel comfortable? Or will you return to the discipline that feels divine? Because purpose only responds to focus. And without focus, even greatness will fade into noise. The silent voice of God, that's the one most people miss. Because we've been trained to look for the dramatic, the thunder, the earthquake, the fire. But when heaven really wants your attention, it often comes in stillness. It's that quiet conviction that settles in your heart when you're alone. It's that whisper that interrupts your comfort and says, Focus on yourself before it's too late. You see, God rarely shouts. He speaks softly because he's not trying to compete with the noise around you. He's waiting for you to silence it. The voice of God is not absent. It's often simply unheard, not because he isn't speaking, but because we're too distracted to listen. We fill our lives with notifications, conversations, entertainment, and endless activity, yet we call it being productive. But heaven is saying, be still long enough to hear me, because in the silence he reveals secrets. In the quiet he restores direction. In the pause he prepares your next step. You'll never discover divine focus while living in constant motion. God doesn't compete with your schedule. He waits until you're still enough to surrender. And sometimes, when you ignore the whisper, he removes the noise himself. That's when doors close unexpectedly. People leave without explanation. Opportunities vanish without reason. Not because he's punishing you, but because he's positioning you to hear again. Have you ever noticed how silence feels uncomfortable? We rush to fill it, but silence is sacred. It's where revelation lives. God spoke to Elijah not through the wind or the fire, but through a gentle whisper. That whisper still speaks today. It's saying, return to the inner chamber, shut the door, rebuild your focus, because you cannot hear divine instruction while your heart is full of distraction. When God's voice becomes silent, it's not always absence. It's often alignment. He's waiting for your spirit to tune to his frequency, and that requires stillness, discipline, and self-focus. Sometimes heaven stops speaking because you're too busy asking questions you're not ready to obey. So he pauses not out of rejection, but out of wisdom. Because instruction without readiness becomes wasted revelation. He's saying, I can't give you more until you manage what I already said. That's why this season feels quiet. It's not punishment, it's preparation. You're being called into a deeper level of focus where your sensitivity sharpens and your purpose becomes clear. The silent voice of God isn't distant, it's deliberate. It's shaping you to move from reaction to revelation. And maybe right now, God's whisper is the greatest mercy in your life because he knows if he shouted, you'd hear him for a moment. But if he whispers, you'll have to draw closer. And that's where transformation happens. So listen closely. Don't run from the silence. Embrace it. Because in that sacred stillness, God is not hiding from you. He's calling you back to yourself. And that's where your next level begins. Divine urgency. That's what this season carries. There's a weight in the atmosphere, a stirring in the spirit, a call that says, redeem the time you've been wasting on others. Because the truth is, too many have spent their strength fixing lives they were never assigned to. Too many have invested their focus in people who were only meant to pass through, not stay. And now heaven is saying, it's time to come back to yourself. You see, the greatest tragedy in life is not death. It's living without fulfilling the reason you were born. And one of the greatest enemies of destiny is misplaced focus. When you give your energy to everyone else, you end up bankrupt in your own purpose. You pour out, but never refill. You help others climb, but forget to build your own foundation. And while you're busy making everyone else's dream happen, your own vision slowly fades into silence. God never designed you to be drained by distraction. He called you to be fruitful in purpose. But you cannot bear fruit when your roots are planted in the wrong soil. That's why sometimes he allows people to leave. So you can finally see how much time you've been wasting on relationships that were never meant to go the distance. He's not being cruel, he's being clear. He's saying, your time is sacred. Protect it. Time, it's the only currency you can't earn back. Once it's gone forever. You can recover money, you can rebuild reputation, you can regain opportunity. but you can never recover wasted years. That's why heaven calls this moment urgent, because every minute you spend outside of purpose is a minute stolen from your destiny. Some of you have been stuck in cycles of distraction, helping everyone else, pleasing everyone else, chasing approval that doesn't matter. You've mistaken business for purpose and kindness for calling. But there's a difference between serving from purpose and being enslaved by people. Purpose gives life. People-pleasing drains it. Heaven is saying, I can't take you higher until you release what's been holding you down. It's time to separate what's valuable from what's just visible. Not everyone who claps for you is called to walk with you. Not every opportunity is an assignment, and not every need is your responsibility. You must learn to say no to what distracts so you can say yes to what defines, because destiny demands decisions, and indecision is the thief of time. This is not a message of fear. It's a call to focus. You've been anointed for more, appointed for more, but God cannot multiply what you refuse to manage. So refocus your attention, reclaim your time, redeem your purpose. Because what's ahead of you requires your full capacity, not your divided attention. Your life is too valuable to waste on what doesn't grow you. Your time is too short to invest in what doesn't serve your destiny. Your calling is too sacred to be diluted by distraction. Heaven is watching, waiting, whispering, move now. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now, because purpose delayed is potential denied. And this is your moment to return to yourself before it's too late.